I handed over my entire year's salary to my wife, hoping to provide a better life for her and our daughter. Yet all I got in return was her cold remark that I wasn't as good at taking care of the family as others. Little did I know that, when I finally decided to have a heart-to-heart talk about our future, a medical report from the hospital shattered our peace. I thought the money I had saved up through hard work could save her life, but she coldly accused me of intentionally deceiving her out of the money. It was then that I realized that the millions I had earned over the years had all gone to her cousin and that penniless artist lover. Only now do I understand that the so-called family was just a stage for her to put on a show, and I was merely an audience member being used. Despite earning several $1 million a year, I gave it all to my wife, yet she constantly complained that I was too focused on work and didn't know how to take care of the family like other men. I endured the humiliation for the sake of our daughter. Later, my wife was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and I urged her to use our savings for treatment. She accused me of deceiving her and not being sincere. It wasn't until then that I realized she had been spending my entire salary on her cousin and that penniless artist lover. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to file for divorce. Telling her so. That's right, I was just joking with you. The company offered family health checkups for top salespeople, so I signed Emily up. We had just had a checkup a year ago, and the results were good, so I didn't think much of it this time. On my way home from work, I received a call from the chief physician at the health checkup center. He informed me that Emily had a shadow on her brain, which was preliminarily diagnosed as a tumor, and that she needed to undergo an MRI and biopsy immediately for confirmation. Dr. Johnson's tone on the phone was very serious. He said the shadow was in a dangerous location, and if we delayed any further, it could affect the function of the brainstem, with severe consequences. After hearing this, I immediately agreed and rushed home. As I stood at the front door, wondering how to break the news to Emily, I heard my daughter Sophie sobbing uncontrollably inside. I rushed inside, opened the door, and embraced my daughter. In the living room, Emily was leisurely peeling an orange for her cousin's son, chatting happily with him, completely unaware of Sophie's tears. Having just learned about Emily's condition, I felt deeply discouraged and struggled to control my anger. I asked my daughter softly what had happened. Sophie's eyes were red, and she clung to me, sobbing, "Daddy, Mom bought Ethan a new remote-controlled car but didn't buy me one, and my cousin took all my bear candies." I looked at my wife, hoping she could explain. Emily was still focused on playing with her nephew and didn't look up. What's the point of a girl playing with boys' toys? And when she grows up, she can just marry a rich man. Why spend so much money on her? I took a deep breath. Sophie was my daughter, and the money I spent on her was money I had earned. Money you earned. Emily suddenly looked up, her eyes flashing with panic. Then she sneered, "With your measly salary, you dare to talk about earning money? I've been saving every penny for years, and you're even keeping track of the money spent on a toy for a relative's child." She grew more and more agitated, tears welling up in her eyes as if she had been deeply wronged. This whole scene was giving me a headache. I simply couldn't understand it. The commissions and bonuses I saved up over the year amounted to several million, and she still complained that I didn't earn enough. And since she married me, she's been living off me, enjoying a life of luxury, wearing designer clothes and living in a mansion. Where did all that money come from? Thinking about the medical report, I didn't want to argue anymore. I picked up Sophie, covered her little ears, and tried to keep my voice calm. "Emily, the doctor said there's something abnormal in your brain. We need to get a follow-up checkup right away." I was worried that saying this would scare her, so I spoke softly. "Dr. Johnson at the health checkup center suspects it might be a tumor." Emily froze, her face turning pale. "What are you talking about, a tumor?" I lowered my head, unable to look at her face. "Dr. Johnson said the situation is serious and needs to be addressed immediately. But don't worry, I've already contacted the best neurosurgeon in the city. Before I could finish speaking, she slapped me hard across the face. Emily's expression was furious. Her eyes filled with anger. James, you're lying to me, you're trying to frame me. I understood. Did you secretly give the money to that woman, so now you're pretending to be sick to get money from me? I was confused. What woman? Don't pretend. I saw everything clearly. Last time you were very close to that Lily, talking about a collaboration project. I saw it all. Last month, when I was in a meeting with Lily from the marketing department discussing an important client, Emily suddenly burst in, poured a cup of coffee on Lily, and called her a mistress in front of everyone. The client left immediately, and I was docked my year-end bonus as a result. I furrowed my brows and patiently explained the situation to her again. Emily still didn't believe me. She snatched Sophie from my arms and said firmly, "Don't say that. If you don't get that bonus back, you won't be able to see your daughter again." I sat in the car for a long time, trying to figure out how things had gotten so bad. 5 years ago, Emily was an outstanding student in the finance department with a gentle personality. But in just a few years, she had become greedy and sharp-tongued, often telling me I wasn't ambitious enough. Thinking she might have a brain tumor, I decided to put my work on hold and go help her first. Emily had always treated her cousin Ethan like a treasure and listened to him implicitly. Maybe he could help me convince her. I drove to the upscale neighborhood where Ethan lived. But to my surprise, the security guard recognized me. "Mr. James, welcome back." While riding the elevator, I suddenly wondered how Ethan could afford to live in such a nice place without a job. Emily always praised him for having good taste and knowing how to enjoy life. Every time she compared us, she would say, "Look at your cousin. He knows how to enjoy life. Now look at you. All you do is work." I used to think she was just trying to encourage me, but now it seems there's more to it. When Ethan opened the door and saw me, he clearly froze for a moment. "Brother-in-law, what brings you here so late?" I went straight to the point and told him about Emily's condition. "Does my sister know about this? How did she react?" His face turned pale and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. "She doesn't believe me. She thinks I'm lying." I sighed. "You're close to her. Can you please convince her to go get checked out right away?" Emily nodded repeatedly. "I understand, brother-in-law. I'll definitely convince her to go tomorrow." "Don't worry," I sighed in relief, said goodbye to her, and left. When I reached the underground garage, I realized I had left the keys on Ethan's coffee table. So I hurried back to get them. The door was ajar. Just as I was about to knock, I heard Ethan's urgent voice on the phone. "Michael, can you give me a few more days? Pay off this time's bill along with the last one. Don't worry, my sister has enough money. Her husband is a big earner, making a lot every year. A few million is nothing to her." Hearing this, I couldn't help but rush in and kick Ethan. No wonder a few million a year isn't enough for Emily to spend. She's always asking for money for her daughter or for various household expenses. Ethan hasn't found any quick way to get rich. He's just become a person who only knows how to take. He didn't react in time. His phone fell, and his body slammed into the wall. "Brother-in-law, I want to tell you something," Ethan said, covering his face and looking nervous. I grabbed his collar and asked, "Spit it out. What did you use my money for? And how much does your sister give you every year?" I never thought this fat guy would dare to lie to me. This is too much. I won't let this go. I looked at the phone that had already hung up and punched Ethan again. Ethan staggered and knelt down. "Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. Please don't tell my cousin. I'll never do it again." Seeing that I didn't respond, he immediately swore his loyalty. "Brother-in-law, my sister is sick. Yes, she can't be upset right now. I'll go convince her right away and promise she'll go to the hospital." The next day when I returned home, Emily was applying ointment to Ethan's bruises. Seeing me come back, she coldly asked, "What are you doing home during work hours?" I looked at Ethan's apologetic expression and sneered. Emily suddenly approached me and took a deep breath. "James, What's that smell on you? Such an expensive perfume." She started rummaging through my pockets and pulled out a small sample bottle of cologne from my briefcase. This was a custom sample given to me by a client who recently signed a contract with a French luxury brand. Emily immediately got angry. "So that's why your salary has been decreasing lately? Because you've been messing around with those unscrupulous people." I replied coldly, "This is a custom sample from a client. Is there a problem with that?" Emily paused, noticing my tone, and rarely whispered apology. "Are you in a bad mood today?" I looked at her beautiful face and asked, "If your husband gave all the money he earned to his brother, would you be happy?" A flash of panic crossed Emily's eyes, and she tightly gripped my arm. Ethan quickly came out to mediate, pulling me into the guest room and locking the door from the inside. "Brother-in-law, I think it's better not to tell my cousin about this." Seeing me frown, Ethan quickly added, "I looked it up online. Many health check results aren't very accurate. Maybe my cousin was just misdiagnosed. You agree, right?" I was so angry I couldn't help but laugh. "Are you worried she'll really get sick and need money? Then come asking you for it." I wanted to leave. At that moment, Ethan suddenly leaned closer to me and whispered, "Brother-in-law, don't worry too much about my sister. The money I spent was just pocket change. The big bucks went to other men. Emily had an affair, and it was her own beloved cousin who told me. A gambler cornered will sell out anyone. The chances of something going wrong are slim." I stared into his eyes and asked, who Ethan realized he had spoken too quickly, his eyes darting nervously downward. Unable to meet mine, I told him, "If you don't tell me, you won't get a single penny from me in the future." Actually, whether he told me or not, he wouldn't get a single penny from me. Ethan clenched his teeth and gave a name. "Daniel." When I heard that name, I thought I must have heard wrong. Isn't that the artist Emily often mentioned who wasn't doing well? He was my junior in college. I had taken care of him a lot when we were students, but we lost touch after graduation until my wife mentioned him 2 years ago. I felt my stomach churning violently. Ethan saw my pale face and added, "My sister said he'd come today. If you don't believe me, you can wait at home and see for yourself." No sooner had he finished speaking than the sound of an electronic lock unlocking came from the door. My heart skipped a beat. The door was opened from the outside. Whoever came knew the password. I couldn't believe it as I walked out and saw Emily pushing Daniel away. Emily whispered, "I told you today wasn't a good day. Did you miss me, Emily?" The man wrapped his arms around her waist in a playful manner but stopped suddenly when he saw me. He quickly adjusted his expression and pretended to be polite, saying, "James, you're home today." Emily pushed him away and nervously touched her hair. I calmly watched the couple. How could you let me catch my wife and my good junior brother cheating on me like this? Daniel didn't expect me to be so direct, and his smile froze on his face. Emily's face turned pale, but she couldn't help asking, "James, I don't understand what you're saying. Daniel is your junior. How could you doubt us?" Emily spoke while pretending to cry. I watched her performance in silence. Suddenly, Daniel stood up straight and embraced Emily in a provocative manner. "There's no need to tell James so much. Divorce is fine. I'll take care of you. Besides, Emily likes my art and appreciates my talent. We have a soul connection that you can't give her." Although Emily had been exposed, she couldn't help but show a hint of satisfaction upon hearing these words, as if she had finally found an outlet for the injustice she felt. I was so angry I couldn't help but laugh, my voice unusually calm. "That's right, I'm good at making money, but I can't give you the kind of soul connection you're looking for." Emily's momentum clearly weakened. "James, I promise I won't let Daniel come to our house anymore. Just pretend nothing happened, okay?" I didn't know how to respond. How could she say that so confidently? Before I could object, Emily continued, "It's not all my fault. You're always busy working to make money, while Daniel can spare a few hours every day to spend with me. You should understand, right?" Emily seemed to be implying that I had driven her to cheat. In reality, it was she who had always wanted me to work non-stop. even to the point of being preoccupied with earning money all day long, never allowing me to worry about household matters. Over the past 5 years, I had worked tirelessly, becoming a top salesperson with an annual income of several million, only to be betrayed by Emily. I gently placed my hand over my heart. The feelings I once had for Emily had completely vanished. Emily, do you remember what I told you yesterday about the strange things in your mind? Emily froze for a moment, then glared at me angrily. Are you trying to deceive me again? You're impossible to reason with. I shook my head. Yes, I was deceiving you. Let's get a divorce. A flash of joy crossed Daniel's eyes while Emily and Ethan looked tense. Ethan was sweating profusely. Sis, you can't divorce him. Go apologize to your husband. Emily bit her lip and admitted her mistake in a low voice. James, it's my fault. Daniel and I are just ordinary friends. We didn't do anything to betray you. Daniel reluctantly said, That's right. We just chatted. There was nothing else. He emphasized the word just to make sure I heard the implication in his words. I felt uneasy. I'll go get the household registration book and handle the divorce proceedings right away. Are you joking? Emily said confidently, if you divorce, you'll never see Sophie again. Just then, Sophie rubbed her eyes and came out of the bedroom. As soon as she saw me, she ran over and hugged my legs, Daddy. Emily immediately put on a gentle expression and asked Sophie, Mom wants to ask you if Dad and Mom separate. Who do you want to live with? Sophie blinked her big eyes and replied without hesitation, I don't want Mom, I want to live with Dad. I picked up my daughter, filled with regret. I should have divorced Emily long ago. Emily looked at Sophie, her face filled with anger. Just as I turned to go get the household registration book, Emily suddenly clutched her stomach, looking weak, and said to me, James, you can't divorce me. I'm pregnant. Ethan and Daniel both looked surprised and delighted, while I felt a chill run down my spine. According to the law, divorce is indeed not allowed during pregnancy. Emily felt she had found my weakness and was very pleased with herself. But she didn't know that 3 years ago, after Sophie was born, due to her constant complaints about the expenses of raising a child, I had secretly undergone a vasectomy. I took out a copy from my wallet and calmly handed it to her. Are you sure this is my child? Emily took it without understanding, looked at it carefully, and her face turned pale. That's my vasectomy certificate. She froze, completely speechless. Daniel was surprised and hurriedly took a few steps back. Ethan's face turned even paler than Emily's. Emily knelt down with a thud, crawled to my feet and said, James, I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? I pushed her hands away and said, It's too late. Daniel walked over to help Emily up and said, Sister, since he's gone, I'll take care of you and the child. Emily suddenly pushed him away and shouted angrily, How dare you take care of me? You can't even pay the rent. Can your paintings even sell? Without me, are you nothing? Daniel's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness, but he quickly regained his gentle expression and said, Sister, don't get so worked up. It's not good for the baby. I picked up Sophie and watched the scene unfold in silence. Emily finally calmed down, glaring at me with hatred. James, I will never divorce you. Even if I have to drag you through hell, I won't let you go. Fine, I said. I don't want Emily to get the upper hand either. The money she spent on her cousin and her lover, I haven't gotten back yet. If she wants to play, I'll play along until the end. Soon enough, since she wants to play, Emily will come begging me for a divorce. After the truth came out, Emily stopped pretending. The next afternoon, when I returned home, I saw Emily massaging Daniel's feet. Daniel had already changed into his pajamas, and my clothes were neatly folded and placed in the storage room. The bedsheets in the master bedroom were also untouched, looking as though they had just been used. Emily glanced at me. Why did you come back so early today? I kicked the shoes off the floor, opened the refrigerator, took out a drink and started drinking. I quit my job. You quit your job? Emily asked loudly. Why do you quit your job? I said calmly. You always said I'm never home to spend time with you. now that I've quit my job and will be home every day to spend time with you. Why are you still unhappy?" Emily was so anxious she almost jumped up as if she wanted to drag me back to the company. "You can't quit your job. Go back and apologize to your boss." I pushed Emily's hand away, lay down on the sofa, and rested my feet near Daniel's mouth. Emily tried to persuade me, but at that moment, several burly men burst in. "You're Ethan's cousin." The tall man leading them looked intimidating and had a terrifying expression. Emily involuntarily took a step back. I am. There was only one woman in the room, so she couldn't deny it. "Then it's simple. Your cousin owes our boss $3 million in gambling debts. He said you'd help pay it back. Hand over the money now." Emily's face turned pale. "I don't have any money." "Can you give me a few days?" "No money," Tony sneered. "I think you don't want to pay. I noticed your clothes, jewelry, and bag are all designer brands, plus this big house. Selling it would fetch a lot of money, wouldn't it?" Emily was terrified. "Big brother, these are all fake. They're not worth anything. And if we sell the house, I won't have anywhere to live." The tall man didn't say anything. He just made a call on the other end. Ethan and his parents were crying. Ethan cried out for help. "Cousin, please help me. They're going to beat my legs." His parents were even more direct. "Emily, we raised you as our own daughter. Your cousin is your own brother. What's wrong with selling the house? Your husband has plenty of money. He can just buy another house." Emily was deeply saddened. Tears streamed down her face. "Why sell my house? Why not sell my cousin's?" Ethan's father was furious. "Your brother's house isn't even paid off yet. And he's a boy. The family needs an heir. A daughter who marries out is like water poured out. There's nothing more to say." Emily trembled all over and finally nodded helplessly. "I'll sell it. You're truly my good daughter." This line really hit home for Emily. After hanging up the phone, she immediately said she would sell the house without even asking my opinion. The tall man coldly smiled and said, "The buyer is already here. Sign the contract quickly." 3 hours later, Emily was kicked out. The penthouse apartment worth over 10 million yuan was sold for only 6 million. I stared at Emily and Daniel standing outside the community. Earlier, Daniel had been as timid as a sparrow, but now he spoke up first. "Emily, why don't you come with me?" Emily glanced at me, seeming a bit guilty. I said directly, "Take care of yourself. James, should I have my men teach that couple a lesson, speed up the divorce process?" The tall man rubbed his chin and smiled wickedly at me. I shook my head and handed him a generous sum as compensation. Tony was very happy. "James, you're too kind. If it weren't for you and Chris helping me back then, I might still be sleeping under a bridge. Just consider it overtime pay for the brothers." That's right. The debt collectors were actors I hired through Tony. After deducting Tony's appearance fee and overtime pay, the money from selling the house has already been transferred to my bank account. As for how Ethan's real creditors will handle his family, that's none of my business. And soon Emily will come to ask me for advice on how to get a divorce. Having grown accustomed to a luxurious lifestyle, she values money more than her life. She wouldn't divorce a love scammer, but if it's a wealthy CEO, that might be different. Daniel was more desperate than I expected. He contacted me privately shortly after. "James, I know some of Emily's secrets. If you're interested, I can sell them to you cheaply." I saved his voice recording and anonymously reported him for allegedly defrauding multiple wealthy women. Within less than 2 weeks, Daniel was summoned by the police 3 times and had to sell everything to hire a lawyer to resolve the issue. One rainy night, a month later, the doorbell rang suddenly. Emily, covered in injuries, found my hotel and pleaded with me to reconcile, her voice trembling with tears. "James, I truly regret what I did. I wasn't actually pregnant. It was all a lie." Seeing her emaciated state, I remained expressionless. "Are you done?" Emily thought I might soften and quickly said, "I know I was wrong. I can't contact Daniel, but I'll slowly get my cousin to pay him back. Can you go back to work?" I pretended to hesitate. How will you prove you're truly repentant? A glimmer of hope flashed in Emily's eyes. Just tell me what to do. I told her that if she wanted me to go back to work, she first had to apologize to Lily and go beg the company boss for mercy. Although Emily was reluctant, she agreed reluctantly for the sake of a wealthy life. The next day, she really went to find Lily, humbly enduring her insults without rebutting. Then, she found a way to get close to my boss, Chris. This was exactly what I wanted, as Chris and I had already discussed it beforehand. Chris is my longtime friend and the company's founder. Upon learning of my situation, he immediately offered to help. Such a woman needs to be shown her place, otherwise, she'll never realize how excessive she's been. Chris gave a cold laugh. Emily went to great lengths to get close to Chris, and Chris clearly had feelings for her. Over the next 2 weeks, she was driven around in luxury cars, dined at high-end restaurants, and received expensive gifts, everything she'd always dreamed of. I watched through surveillance and saw how Emily was fawning over Chris, finding it utterly ironic. This woman who had always looked down on me for lacking taste and only caring about money was now going out of her way to please a man who was even wealthier. Chris was 35 years old, worth over $100 million and still single. He perfectly matched Emily's ideal partner. A month later, Emily came to me on her own, saying she wanted to divorce me. In the cafe, she looked happy, her face radiating the smug satisfaction of having found a new sugar daddy. James, let's get a divorce. She spoke directly. I deliberately ignored her and kept drinking my coffee. Emily started to get anxious. You've always wanted a divorce, so why aren't you saying anything now? I pretended to be regretful and said, I've changed my mind. I don't want to leave anymore. How could you do this? Emily was so flustered that sweat was pouring down her face. You know me so well. She hurriedly stopped the car and didn't mention the matter with Chris. I continued to act calmly. Children should grow up in a complete family. Emily responded with a cold smile. Sophie isn't close to me. She'll be fine with you. I bit my lip to stop myself from saying something harsh and asked, what about child support? You know I don't have a job right now. Emily thought for a moment and said, I'll give it to you, but we must divorce immediately. All right. I agreed without hesitation, thinking to myself that I had finally waited for this moment. Since both parties agreed, the divorce proceedings were quickly finalized. At the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Emily could no longer hide her joy. James, I finally don't have to endure your incompetence anymore. She raised her eyebrows, looked at me and coldly said, let me tell you a secret. I'm with your former boss now. From now on, you better be polite to me, or you might lose your job. I smiled brightly and said, just wait and see. On the day of the divorce, I immediately used the money from selling the house to buy a school district property and hired a professional nanny to take care of Sophie. Then I called Chris and told him it was all settled. No need to pretend anymore. Chris joked, James, your taste is truly surprising. I couldn't stand that woman after just half a month. And you managed to endure her for 5 whole years. Maybe I'm just blind, I replied. I joked, all right, the vacation is almost over. It's time to go back to work. Don't forget the new project next week. You owe me one. Chris reminded me. Don't worry, I'll do my best to help you. I replied casually. After hanging up the phone, I poured myself a glass of red wine and felt a sense of relief for the first time. The next day, I returned to the office. I happened to run into Emily at the entrance of the building. She took off her sunglasses, glanced at me casually, then walked past me arrogantly and entered the building. The receptionist smiled and greeted me, James. Good morning. Emily immediately frowned and snapped at the receptionist. Didn't you see me? The receptionist maintained her professional smile and asked, Ma'am, who are you looking for? Emily's face turned red. How could you not recognize me? I've been here so many times, don't play dumb. The receptionist looked confused and asked me, James, who is this? I simply replied, I don't know her. Emily was furious and shouted, I'm Chris's girlfriend. The receptionist looked puzzled and asked, "Chris, there's no one named Chris in our company." Emily froze. "Chris is the owner of this company." The receptionist shook her head and said, "The founder of our company is Lily. M's Lily." Emily was utterly shocked, taking a step back. "That's impossible," Chris clearly said just then. Lily and an elegant woman emerged from the elevator. Emily rushed forward and asked, "Where is Chris? I need to see him." Lily glared at her coldly and said, "Security, please escort this disruptive lady out." The elegant woman curiously asked, "Who is this?" Lily replied softly, "She's the woman I mentioned earlier. The one who was betrayed by Chris and James and went through some difficult things." Emily's face turned pale, and she finally realized she had been deceived. She struggled desperately, pointing at me and shouting, "James, you're deceiving me. You're all deceiving me." I watched her being escorted out of the building by security without any expression, feeling no sympathy at all. That night, the emergency room called, saying Emily had fainted at the company entrance and been taken to the hospital. The examination results showed that her brain tumor had spread, and her condition was much worse than during the physical examination 3 months ago. The doctor told me that if I had sought treatment promptly back then, the chances of a cure would have been high. Now, we could only try surgery and chemotherapy. But the success rate was less than 30%. I sat on the bench outside the ward, my mind in turmoil. Memories from the past 5 years kept flooding back. When we first met, Emily was gentle and considerate, but after marriage she suddenly changed, followed by betrayal and deception. In the ward, Emily's cries grew increasingly heartbreaking. Her parents and Ethan, upon learning she had a brain tumor and that there was no hope for recovery, quietly packed their things and left. They didn't leave any money for treatment and didn't even say goodbye. Emily cried out in despair, "Dad, Mom, you can't abandon me. Didn't you say you'd treat me like your own daughter?" Emily's father and mother walked away without looking back, leaving only the words, "We can't afford to care for a sick daughter. Go find your wealthy boss." I couldn't help but laugh coldly. This was the family Emily had always been proud of. They had always treated her like an ATM, never caring about her as a person. What happens behind closed doors is different from what's shown to the outside world. Emily's family was always polite to outsiders, but cold and indifferent to their own daughter. No wonder Emily's personality became so twisted. A nurse came out and asked if I was willing to cover the surgery costs. I hesitated for a moment, then signed the consent form and paid the full amount. It wasn't out of pity. I just wanted to maintain a good image in front of my daughter, so she wouldn't think I didn't care about her mother. Emily's surgery lasted 8 hours, and the doctor said the prognosis wasn't good. On the 3rd day after the surgery, she woke up and saw me by her bedside. She managed to move her lips slightly. "You came to mock me." Her voice was hoarse. I shook my head and said, "This is just my final duty to my ex-husband." "Did you pay for it?" A look of disbelief flashed in her eyes. I wiped away her tears and said, "Rest now, don't speak anymore." In the days that followed, Emily underwent several rounds of chemotherapy. Her body grew emaciated and her hair fell out completely. I didn't allow Sophie to visit her, fearing it might have a negative impact on the child. Emily agreed with this decision, stating she didn't want her daughter to see her in such a state. During the chemotherapy period, the police asked me to discuss Daniel's case. I learned that Daniel had actually been married all along, and his wife was the daughter of a wealthy businessman. He had been preying on middle-aged wealthy women, and Emily was just one of his many targets. I provided the police with evidence of Emily's deception, and Daniel was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Ethan, who owed even more high-interest loans, was forced to flee and is still missing. Emily's parents had to sell their property and move to a remote rural area due to Ethan's debts, and they have since gone missing. Upon hearing this news, Emily merely smiled faintly and said, "It's karma, isn't it?" Emily's condition was growing increasingly severe. The doctor informed me that she had at most 1 month left to live. I silently accepted this news and took a long leave of absence from work. During this time, I visited her in the hospital almost every day. She asked me why I was doing this. Our relationship is over, right? I remained silent for a moment, for Sophie's sake. She needed a complete childhood. Emily fell silent as if deep in thought. I don't deserve to be her mother. Emily's final days were unexpectedly peaceful. She began using her remaining strength to prepare gifts for Sophie. She wrote handwritten cards, one for each of Sophie's birthdays over the next 18 years. A growth album filled with love, documenting her hopes and concerns for her daughter. There were also letters for every important stage of her life, from elementary school to college. Seeing her frail figure on the hospital bed, writing so carefully, I was deeply moved. This woman who had once hurt me so deeply, finally, understood her responsibilities as a wife and mother in her final moments. As Emily lay on her deathbed, she held Sophie's small hand tightly and said in a broken voice, "Sophie, Mom is going to a very far place and won't be able to watch you grow up. Promise, Mom, you'll be a good girl and listen to your father." Sophie didn't fully understand, but she nodded anyway. Emily smiled and slowly closed her eyes. The electrocardiogram on the monitor flattened into a straight line. On the day of Emily's cremation, only Sophie and I were there to send her off. No one from Emily's family came to the ceremony. After Emily passed away, Sophie and I gradually adapted to our new life. Every night, Sophie would ask me to take her stargazing, saying that the brightest star was her mother. The company gave me an extended leave, allowing me to spend a lot of time with my daughter. 3 months later, I returned to work. Chris and Lily understood my situation and did their best to help me manage the work pressure. Half a year passed, and I gradually emerged from that difficult period. A year later, I met a single mother named Grace. Her son Jack was in the same class as Sophie, and he had a very outgoing personality. We met at a school parent-teacher meeting and gradually got to know each other. Grace was gentle and caring, completely different from Emily's style. She ran a small flower shop. Though her life wasn't wealthy, she lived a fulfilling and happy life. We went on a few dates, and the children got along well. One day she asked me about Emily, so I told her the truth without holding back any details. After hearing this, Grace began to think, "James, do you harbor any hatred toward her?" This question caught me off guard. After thinking about it, I shook my head. I didn't hate her, I just felt sorry for her. If she had realized sooner what was truly important, things might have turned out differently. Grace spoke softly. People often need to go through certain experiences to learn to appreciate what they have. I nodded in agreement. So I'm grateful to you for approaching relationships with such an attitude. Grace's eyes softened with tenderness. Because I understand that the most precious thing in this world isn't money, but genuine care and kindness. My relationship with Grace was growing deeper, but I still hadn't mentioned anything about taking it further, because Emily had hurt me so deeply. I was afraid to open myself up to love again. Until Sophie's 7th birthday, Grace threw her a small party and made her favorite princess cake. After the party, Sophie whispered to me, "Daddy, I saw Shu Xingxing today." Shu Xingxing. I didn't understand. That star was Mom turning into a star. She told me she hopes Dad can be happy. Sophie said innocently. She also said that Aunt Grace is very kind and could be my new mom. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I hugged my daughter tightly. In that moment, the weight on my heart finally lifted. That night, after putting Sophie to bed, I called Grace. Her voice was gentle. "Is the child asleep?" "Yes, she just fell asleep," I replied softly. After a moment of silence, I gathered my courage and said, "Grace, I want to talk to you. You have time tomorrow?" "Sure," she replied quickly, as if she had been waiting for me to ask. The next day, I took Sophie to Grace's flower shop. As soon as Jack saw Sophie, he pulled her over to look at the newly bloomed sunflowers. Grace was trimming roses, and the sunlight filtering through the petals illuminated her face, highlighting her soft features. I walked over to her, handed her a small box, took a deep breath and said, "Grace, I want to ask you and Jack to move in with us." She stopped what she was doing, her eyes filled with surprise and confusion. "What's this?" I opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring. "This isn't an engagement ring, but I hope it's the start of something new." Grace stared at me for a long time, tears silently falling down her cheeks. "James, do you know how long I've waited for this day?" I felt guilty and shook my head. "I'm sorry I made you wait so long." She wiped away her tears, smiled, and shook her head. "No, it wasn't too long. It was worth the wait." Not far away, Sophie and Jack were watching us quietly, exchanging smiles. I understood. This was the beginning of a new life.